day today? You know what? That was awesome on this side. I don't know what's wrong with this side. That's the boring side. You need the podium? What about the mic? Okay. All right. So how was y'all's day today?
Good. Good.
Very disappointed in this side. Good job over here. But over here, I don't know about y'all. Nope, too late now. You had your chance. All right. Did y'all miss me last week?
No.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I got a little bit of love out there. That's enough for me. All right, tonight we're going to talk about a few old movies real quick. But we're going to look at something about it. Any of y'all know the movie, and y'all probably nobody will remember this, the movie Drop Dead Fred?
I do.
Who said I do? It's an 80s movie. You remember Drop Dead Fred?
It's got that cute little Phoebe something in it.
Phoebe Cates.
Phoebe Cates.
Yeah.
All right. What about anybody in here know the movie Elf?
Oh, I do.
I figured that would be good.
I want to watch that. That's funny.
Santa.
And one more movie. Does anybody know? This is a early to mid '80s movie, The Never Ending Story.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I could count on you.
It's a Sugar Thing.
And that song is actually from that movie. All right. When I bring up these three, movies to look at this. Do you know what? There is a common theme. There is kind of a common theme between these movies, and that's what we're kind of talking about tonight. Do you know that in each of these movies, there's somebody or something that only exists because of human beings believing in them or it or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? So, like in Drop Dead Fred, it was about an imaginary friend. And as long as that person believed in their imaginary friend, they could keep seeing their imaginary friend. That imaginary friend existed. I know Faith had Sada and Bada as imaginary friends when we were little. We brought that up. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But so you had that. In Elf, there is a scene towards the end of it where Santa's sleigh won't fly. Y'all remember that? Why wouldn't it fly? Anybody know? Because nobody believed. Right? So that he lost the power for his sleigh to fly. Right? Now, in Never Ending Story, which probably me and Jessica's not the only ones that remember much about this movie, but in Never Ending Story, well, let me just read this to you. This is from the fandom.com wiki about the Never Ending Story. And it says this: the Nothing is the main antagonist in the Never Ending Story. It is a power which destroys Fantastica one by one by absorbing it. Now, Fantastica was the land. It was the place where the Never Ending Story kind of took place at. It was a location and had all these different things that lived in it and that stuff. But it says so the thing called the Nothing would destroy Fantastica and absorb it in. All right, but then it goes on to say this. But in truth, it is the result of humans no longer believing in the world of fantasy, and without their beliefs, fantasy is disappearing, leaving nothing behind. So in other words, the idea is that because people don't believe that these things, or these people, or whatever, they cease to exist. They become nothing. Yeah.
There's one that they probably will remember. It's called The Rise of the Guardians.
And see, this is what I was going to get to. I was going to say, can y'all tell me some other examples of this? And that's the, yeah. What other examples, movies or shows or whatever can you think of? And you explained it a little bit. The whole premise of the what? Yes, absolutely. Books too. All right. What about it?
The God and the people's all the gods, and people stop believing in them and worshiping their sacrifices and all that, they slowly die.
They slowly die. That's right. Yeah. Anybody else got any other in movies? And I remember, and I could not remember which movie this was, but there was one where everybody turned their back on the bad guy and refused to acknowledge him, and he disappeared. But I searched, I could not come up with which movie that was.
So the Rise of the Guardians is basically like a group of, it's Santa Claus, Sandman, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny. And what's the bad guy's name? We used to call him Boogeyman. The Rise of the Guardians. We were just watching Nightmare. Yeah, we just watched this at Yeah, and he turns the Sandman's sand black.
Jack Frost is in it.
Jack Frost is in it. And so nobody, in the beginning of the movie, nobody can see Jack Frost. Nobody believes in him.
Right.
And then he becomes one of the guardians, and then the kids can see him. The one little boy believes in him. And that's what saves everything.
That's right. And that's, look, yeah. Anybody else? Cam, did you have something?
The movie Jack Frost. You know, the one with Michael Keaton.
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. So anyway, we know that there's movies and books and things like that talks about, that the whole point is that it takes people believing for things to exist in there, stuff like that. And then I'm glad you brought up, Si, you brought up the Greek gods and the Roman gods and stuff like that, because you're right. In their mythology, they would cease to exist. They would slowly die and crumble away as people quit believing it. And and I'm telling you, there's another movie or book that I've read that I cannot think of that was on that same premise. Oh, it was Merlin, the old Merlin movie. And one of the cases was the mountain that would speak. And he was slowly dying because people didn't believe in him anymore. But that's a common theme through fantasy, is that kind of thing like that. So now, here's what I want to ask you. So Fred, from Drop Dead Fred, and in it, he's an imaginary friend who, because of people not believing, he begins to die. But if you watch the movie, you realize that in this case, Drop Dead Fred got to live and just moved on to another kid. And anyway. But Fred, Fantastica, which is the land that the never-ending story is from, Santa's sleigh from Elf, the Greek gods, and all of this stuff, and all. And then I put over here God. Now, disbelief often brings an end to things, and not just in fantasy stuff, but in reality. As we begin to disbelieve things do tend to go away, and that happens. Or that entity, whatever it may be, tends to lose its power. Kind of like Santa's sleigh and Elf that wouldn't fly because it didn't have the power. These things start happening and start going away. And what happens is they become of no effect. Think about the Greek gods and stuff like that, like Zeus and all of that. What do we think of those as? As me, it says stories, right? Stuff like that. Do you know there was a time that they were seriously worshipped? I'm talking about. Yeah, during that time. But then that stuff, so like the Greek gods, the Roman gods, those two in groups, although they hadn't, they never actually lived, because it was just made up, but their power, their authority has went away. People don't worship them. People don't actually believe in their existence. So they have lost their power for disbelief and that kind of stuff. All of that happens, all right? here's where we're going to read the verse. Go to Romans chapter 3. Romans chapter 3, verse 3. I want to read this to you. Romans 3, chapter 3, verse 3. And it says this. Paul poses the question. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? So, if you don't believe in Fred, if people don't believe in Fantastica, if people don't believe in Santa's sleigh, if people don't believe in the Greek gods, what happens? They die. They become of no effect. They lose their power, correct? But Paul is asking the Romans this question, and this is at a time when people did take the Roman and Greek gods seriously. But Paul says, for what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? What happens if we don't believe in God? Yeah. Okay. So that leads me to ask you this. If we don't believe in, say, Fantastica, who does it hurt? It hurts Fantastica. If we don't believe in the Greek gods, who does it hurt? The Greek gods. If we don't believe in that imaginary friend, who does it hurt? That's right. If we don't believe in God, who does it hurt? It hurts us. So it's a little bit different then, right? Huh? So it's a little bit. So I want to step back. We're going to look at a couple of verses here in Romans chapter 1. I want to read verses 21 through 23, and then I'm going to read verse 25, and I'm going to read verse 28. So 21 through 23 says this. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man, and the birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Now drop down to verse 25. It says, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. So, if we choose to not believe in God, it hurts us. God don't lose, he don't lose that power. He don't, he don't slowly die away and lose all that power and that kind of stuff at all. Now, let me ask you this. If you believe in that imaginary friend, what does that do? Huh? It makes him go you. So it keeps him alive. What if you believe in those Greek gods? I mean, is it benefit? Is any of this stuff benefiting you? It's not. It's benefiting them, right? It's benefiting Fantastica. It's keeping that thought alive, or that thing alive, whatever it may be. So it's not really a benefit to you. Now, go to chapter 4 of Romans. And let's read verse 3 of chapter 4. And it says this, for what saith the Scripture? Abraham believed God, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. So, what is the effect of believing in God? It saves us. We go to heaven. We don't die eternally. We're not separated from God for all eternity. So, let me see if we can work this out. Believing in Fred or Fantastica or Santa's sleigh or Greek gods benefits them, correct? But believing in God benefits us. See the difference? Believe it, when we believe in something that's fantastical, it's not helping us necessarily, it's helping that thing. When we believe in God, That helps us. That's the difference right there. So, simply by believing in God, and that's all it takes, we're saved. We go to heaven. We're separated from sin. We're separated from everything bad. Just by believing. And think about this, just so you know what Abraham was really doing. You know what? When Abraham believed in God, he didn't have any Bible at all. Not even Genesis had not even been written yet. Although it had happened, it hadn't been written yet. Moses wrote that. Abraham didn't have a Bible. Abraham didn't have a church to go to. Abraham didn't have anything but God speaking to him and moving through him. And he believed everything that God told him. Abraham left his home and went into a place that he didn't know what it was, where it was. Simply God told him to go. Now this is in a time back before they had any GPSs or phones or post offices or internet or anything. He went to a place completely blind. And faith in God. And that faith in God caused him what? What did he get out of it? He got heaven. What else did he get out of it? A promise, a covenant. What was that promise, a covenant? More than that. He became, basically, he was the reason that the whole world was blessed. He is the reason we're blessed. Because through the faith of Abraham and his belief in God, it came 12 tribes, but it also initially came Jesus, and that's what redeemed us back to that relationship with God. So that's what belief is for you. So belief is a benefit to all the imaginary friends, and it's a benefit to the peoples and the places, and that we've talked about. But but as a matter of fact, the only way any of that stuff exists is through us believing it, through humans believing it. It's the only way that any of that stuff continues to be. God, though, see, God don't need us. That's where sometimes I think we kind of miss this. God don't need us at all. We need Him. See, He existed. Genesis 1:1. Remember Genesis 1:1. What's it say? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you read verse 2, it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. In other words, there was nothing, and God was there. So we know that He was before us. He existed before we did. He existed before time itself, and He did all of this. He existed with absolutely no other beings present to believe in Him. In other words, He existed and was real and was powerful and could do anything and had all power, all authority, and there was not a single soul out there to believe in Him. So He don't get His power from us. He don't need us at all. We need Him. I wrote a note, and I've got notes all in my Bible, but on Romans 3:3, I wrote a note that said this. In fables, the different characters, they lose their power and even cease to exist when people no longer believe in Him. That is not so with God. Even if every living human being denies the existence of Him, He will still be there on the judgment throne when our day comes. And He will still have all power. Whether we believe in Him or not while we're here on earth, won't matter, but in what His abilities are. If every one of us decided we're not going to believe in God, He don't exist, when we all die and we stand before the throne, and we will, He will still have all His power. He will still have all authority, and He will still be just as real as He was before time began. He don't need us. So we're the ones that benefit by believing in God. Everything else benefits from us believing in Him, but God, it's us that benefits. So keep on believing in God. And the other stuff you can believe in is fun. Any of y'all have any imaginary friends? Anybody in here? Imaginary friends? Y'all remember them? It's all right. I had one called Giant. That was his name. Who? You're crazy, are you? Hey, what about any fantasy ideas? Things that you think of, you thought of and stuff. Anybody have something like that?
It ain't that, but something I was thinking. You know the Greek gods, they thought their gods would exist in a way.
Right.
I've always thought if that's true, then wouldn't our God and that's something true in Greek mythology?
Do what now?
With Greek mythology, I mean, they think they're gods, and as long as they think they're real, we believe in our God, they think he's real, so we have to be real, even if the Greeks don't believe in God.
Well, yeah. Our God is the God. He's the only God. So he's always going to be there, always exist. He's the only living God. So, yeah, regardless of whether, even if, let's just say, for example, I think this is what you said. Even if the Greek gods had been real, they would have been created by.
That's what I was gonna say. In essence, they were.
Well,
They were little G-O-D.
And that's correct.
So they were real.
And that's because people believed it.
Right.
That's right.
But
But even if they would have been actual, really real people, gods, little G gods, humans, as they say, that's the way they were described. They were superhumans and all that. Matter of fact, our superheroes of today come from those ideas. Now, had they been real, they still would have been created by our God. And that's the thing. That's the God we serve. But now, anybody else? Anything else? And I want to tell you one that I was, this just to show you how complex my mind was as a kid. Because I read a lot as a kid. I loved movies and fantasy stuff and all that. I can remember as a young kid, I had this fantasy world that I'd live in sometimes, because I didn't sleep much. Honestly, really. I slept like 1 to 3 hours a night as a kid. That's all I know. I just didn't even sleep. I went. Well, my mind was always going. One thing I had was this idea that I had this subterranean highway complex. It was kind of like Tron, if you know the movie. And I actually knew this before I ever knew about Tron. I was doing this. And I had this souped up little futuristic go-kart that was super fast. And I could go anywhere in the world with it, because it just took me and I could go anywhere with it. It was all built up and all industrial-like. It was underground. I had storehouses and mechanical houses. And it was, but I literally built this. Yes, I built this entire world, fantasy world in my head. And would think about it, and I would go places and these stuff. And you know what? It was real to me. It was so real to me. It was something that I was going to do one day. I can even remember the tree that I found in the woods that would be the place that I would go in the hollow of the tree and be able to go down into my little world.
Where's that tree at?
It was actually behind my house. I was very, and so I built this whole little tower, and it was so real. That was going to happen. But you know what happened? As I got older, I began to realize that this was something that it's just a fantasy. I couldn't make this happen if I had all the money in the world. I could not make what I was fantasizing about, or what I was creating in my mind. I couldn't make that happen. So what happened when I started realizing that? Yeah, and so what happened when I started believing it? It died. It died. Now, it just so happens that I've got this really freaky memory that I can remember almost everything from my youth. So I do remember it, but it did, in essence, it died. Because I no longer believed in that little dream. And that's what I was kind of getting at here is that this stuff, if we don't believe in these things, it dies. If we don't believe in God, we die. Keep on believing in God. Anybody got any questions, comments, thoughts? Or have we covered it all?
This is off topic, but we know you weren't here for Bible trivia last week.
Oh,
It was so good. But they loved it.
I missed it. So what was it?
So we just did kind of like some Bible drills. So
know that. Maybe I don't know very good.
Yes, you do.
That ain't fair if I don't get to play. That's what I mean.
Steve's like, I know what's scoring after.
Hey, no, well, that brings up an interesting thing.
Where that came from is Miss Whitney wanted to play it.
No, they laughed at me because she called out like the first one, and I stood up and like every adult in there started laughing.
See, thank you for participating,
And
Wendy.
I was like, I said, really, Wendy?
Hey, I'll be honest with you, when it comes to trivia, I want to play. I don't want to stand on the sideline. Well, now, I like that, bringing up not fair. Is life fair, y'all?
No.
No. Should it be fair?
No.
What happens if life is fair?
We're losing next one.
Hold on, do what?
Everyone gets what they want.
No, what happens if life is fair?
Everybody
We all go to hell.
Yeah.
So be thankful that life isn't fair. Think about that. All right. So next time our opportunity we get, we'll have the Bible trivia with the adults and the kids, and I get to play, right?
Shane, you can call her out. Yeah, Shane, you can play. I'm gonna all of us kids
I'll be
for
I'm not okay. That's all right. We'll do that one night.
Okay.
All of the kids against me.
next one's in.
Y'all will. Yeah, we won't be here next week. Oh yeah, we won't, and we do gotta go over a few things. So let me get back on. All right. All right. So we definitely now. Have you got? I know you had something.
We're gonna do a craft.
That's what I thought. A craft. You look like a pretty interesting one. So I like
I
that.
attempted it today, there was not an easy.
That's all right. Y'all worked it out. It'll be good.
Oh, you gotta think of hard one.
All right. Well, let me go over a few things real quick, and then we'll do our prayer request. First off, this Friday night is movie night. The movie that we'll be playing, there will be The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry. It's a pretty, Denise watched it, and because apparently I really like corny stuff, and I do. I won't lie. I look for the yeah. I look for the message. I don't necessarily look for the budget, and that's what I look for. But she watched it with me. I had her watch it, and she said that it would be one that she thinks would be fine to watch. And it's probably going to go suit a little bit more for some of us. But anyway, it's a good little movie, about an hour and a half long, so we'll watch that Friday night. And it will be starting about 8 o'clock. Now, we do need people to bring drinks. So please bring some canned drinks so we can throw them on ice.
We dropped the ball because we had said last time that we were going to try to do drink collection on Wednesday night before movie night so we could get on ice early, and we forgot.
Yeah.
Let's try to remember that next time.
Yeah, let's write that in for next time. But this time, here's what we ask. If y'all can come, if a few folks can come a little bit early, and I say early, it don't take much early. And we will, we set up everything. We got to get the popcorn machine out, get the popcorn rolling. We got to get the drinks. Just bring some drinks. If each person, we just bring a 12-pack of something. That'll be plenty. And that way we got everything ready and we can start rolling. But y'all come on and help out if you can. We appreciate it. And like I said, we will watch The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry this Friday night. Now, like I said, me and Denise will be gone next Wednesday again. We got to go down to Orlando, and then we're going to swing by and check out. But yeah, we got to go to Orlando. But then we're going to, once we're done in Orlando, we'll go to, we'll get to go on down to Ave Maria and visit with Faith for a day before we come back home. So if y'all would, please continue to remember our family and remember Faith as she's always. As far as her major, her bachelor major will be health science and going into, and then going into physical therapy. So that's what her. Yep. Shalee will have Emily, so y'all pray for Emily, and hope and pray that Shalee don't kill her.
Yeah, if I gotta deal with that one.
All right.
And that one.
All right. One last thing. We've still got to get the money over to the lighthouse. We have not managed to do that yet. I wanted to check to see if anybody wants to try to go over there. If not, well, we've got to get those contributions on over to them, so. If anybody would like us to make that little trip, little field trip deal, we'll set that up. But we do gotta make a decision on that because we need to get that to them. So, y'all will think about that, study on that. Let's come up with an answer as quick as we can on that. Let's come up with an answer on that as quick as we can, because we do gotta get that money over there to them. And there's other things. Anybody got anything else? Other than perhaps nobody need announcements or anything that we need to be looking or working on right now? Nothing? No? Good? All righty then. Let's take some prayer requests. Yes, sir.
Faith and unspoken.
Faith and unspoken. Yes, ma'am. Granny, y'all do continue to remember Granny. I guess she had a good report today. I hadn't got to talk to her. She got back. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Miss Sarah.
Mama said they removed the tape from the scar, but she had two little places that were completely healed. So she's got a big bit down on it. And she got back in 4 weeks for x-rays. Other than that,
She seems to be getting around pretty good. Yes, sir, Mr. Seats.
river, where he broke his collarbone and he fell there.
All right. Lord. Yes, sir. Pretty good. Now, where does Justin,
West Africa.
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia, that's correct. Very good.
Good
We're studying West Africa in the history class, so that's pretty nice.
Okay, who else got a request? Yes.
The Amerson family is unspoken.
Any reports on Mr. Ames?
I've got one on Facebook. Has anybody seen anything?
Yeah, they are at, where was it, he was going, they have to fly to, anyways, they are
Probably
there.
Houston.
Yeah, and they have he was having appointments all day today.
Oh,
I think it's Cindy Anderson out.
Yeah, I think that's it too.
all right. Anybody else?
Randy came home from the hospital yesterday.
Yep, it seems like they may have got her straightened out
I
now.
hope so.
But she's having a lot of kidney issues.
Well, she ended up having, she had a lot of kidney issues. She had E. coli and MRSA also. So,
Y'all do remember Randy Ward? Yep, do remember Tammy. She's, I guess they have decided she's got bone cancer and breast cancer, but they feel like there is a, yeah. Because she's always been very good to go and get checked, because Linda, her mama, she died of cancer years ago.
well, Mama said that she had blood work done in April and everything was clear.
Yeah, yeah.
And now,
So hopefully it is. Y'all do remember. Yeah, she's staying up there, so y'all remember Tammy. Yes. All right.
Cole and Ashton Hatcher, which is the OG Ashton Law.
Okay, yeah.
They're scheduled to have their baby soon already.
Okay.
Their baby Landon.
Yeah, let's remember them. Yes, ma'am.
Hayden had his appointment today, and
Yep.
he got there, and the doctor didn't even see him. He only had the ultrasound done. So he's got to wait 5 to 7 days to get the ultrasound back.
But they basically were checking not just to see about
and that'll go really well. So keep us posted on that, please. Anybody else? Any other prayer requests? Any more? Any more? All right, y'all do remember Teresa Miller and her family. Mr. Ken Miller passed away unexpectedly. So, yes. She got a checkup.
I don't really know exactly what it is. I think it's a little more important than usual because they're the 2-year month.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Y'all remember Shane? Anybody else? Anybody? Anybody? Go once. One twice. Oh, all right. Who wants to pray for us tonight? Anybody?
We might need to say a special prayer that the Lord will encamp his angels around Big Man as he takes the field tomorrow.
Held his gridiron debut.
Yeah. He
Hey,
might come back in a few
Hey,
more
look, boy,
seasons.
look, don't fall down when you're running out onto the field.
Yeah, fall down.
Stop, only do it for money. Yeah, only do it for money like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you on the start
But when you
line?
make a touchdown, do the
I have no idea at this point.
That's why Mom said we're gonna get there early for warm up, so we can't lose
She's
people
on
on
the
the
field
field
there.
there.
Oh, it's so neat. So I got your back.
Stop,
baby.
you
I'm
fall,
leaving.
only do it for money. Mama, can we go watch soccer?
All right. Who wants to pray for us tonight?
Never mind.
Hello. Who wants to lead us in prayer tonight?
Look like it go.
A duck or a platypus? All right, anybody? Do I got to volunteer? Or I got to start calling on people? What? Oh, Brendan wants to pray for us
Yeah, he
tonight?
does. Yeah, he does do it.
What? All right, you can. Go ahead. Sure you can. Oh, you're asking me, please? Okay, go ahead, Brendan. Go ahead, you can. You got it, buddy. All right, y'all bow your head. Amen. Hey, remember, there's no wrong way to pray.